Welcome! This is an informational video made by Natasha Figueroa and Cleo Abad for the course Digital Responsibility. This week's topics cover politics and power with an emphasis on privacy. Thank you for your time, and we hope that our video will be able to provide you with as much new information as possible and that you will be well equipped with the best tools to protect your privacy. Today's topic will cover the definition of privacy and cover the different types of privacy, followed by significant threats, a privacy design model, self-regulation protections by users and providers, moving on to legal protection, some technical alternatives, integrated protection, and lastly, personal autonomy. So, what is privacy? The following video is provided by the organization Privacy International. It will give a brief introduction on the definition of privacy and what is understood under this term. There are three types of privacy mentioned in the book. We will first start with physical privacy, which is the right to selective intimacy. This type of privacy applies to the security of the body and the fulfillment of intimate human needs. This means that you can choose whether you want a group of people around you, a few persons around you, or no one at all. This type of privacy is intertwined with biotechnology and information technology, which links to ICT with the information code of DNA. DNA tests have everything to do with registration of personal data. According to Van Dijk, DNA will probably produce the most important personal data in the future. Another threat to the physical privacy is the biometrics. These are identity checks such as eye and face scanner, fingerprints, and voice recognition. Video cameras can also intrude into intimate physical spheres of personal life. The second type is the relational privacy. This is the right to select contacts without observation and intrusion. Here we talk about relationships and behavior in the work field, at home, and in forms of transportation. A fundamental right of freedom is when you are able to determine one's own personal relationships and conduct without other people observing and interfering with them. The last type of privacy is the informational privacy, which is the right to selective disclosure. This is as old as mankind because it can be traced back in gossip or writing. But with the introduction of ICT, the informational privacy was made more relevant. The informational privacy is more about the grip someone has and keeps over his or her personal data. Nowadays, the protection of privacy has been replaced by the protection of personal data, and sometimes even reduced to the security of this information. Of course, there are threats to privacy. One of them is tracking technologies. Imagine, you use your phone for many things. You set up the alarm to wake up in the morning, you message your friends, and you surf the internet and social media. All your whereabouts, your messages, talks, and your time of awakening, all of that is recorded via the antennas in the fields you pass and is stored in gigantic log files of your telephone operator. When you use Facebook, all the new contacts and profile updates are stored by Facebook and forwarded to advertising agencies. Every time you go to the train station and use your personal OV card, they can trace you and see when you checked in, where you checked in, and where you checked out. Nowadays, you have the special devices that can track and inform you on your usage of water, heat, and electricity. This device does not inform only you about your usage, but also the company that put the device in your home. In a way, they can track when you are home, when you took a shower, and if you are using one appliance or more. These examples show that it is impossible to escape the tracking of technologies, and some people are not even aware that they are being traced. Another threat is biometrics and physical tracing. With this, our physical privacy is at stake. The biometric attributes of people are stored in databases and used in transit. An example of this is the security controls at the airport. Our fingerprints, iris, and face scans are not only stored into our passports, but also in government databases. Police files obtains DNA of many criminals and minor offenders that they can check for biometrics on their mobile devices. An example of a technology that helps tracking is the RFID chip. They are placed on material goods and products. Without even knowing, people who are wearing these goods and products might be double traced. Another example is the CCTV. This is used for face recognition.
Taking preventive measures is essential when it comes to the defense of privacy. This objective can be achieved by designing technology that makes it more difficult to access and harm privacy of users, such as the misuse of their personal information. Choices made in design clearly show that privacy intrusion and defense are matters of interest and power, and often a deliberate choice. For this reason, 5 principles are introduced to ensure a friendlier privacy design. I will now move on to explaining the principles by means of examples. The first principle is to separate goals of new applications and registration. A fitting example is the Dutch electronic company known as Eneco. In 2012, Eneco introduced an e-thermostat known as Tone. This device registers the usage of electricity and gas. Both the consumer and Eneco may have 2 different goals. The consumer might want to use the Tone to be able to track and save on its electricity bill. Eneco's goal could be the monitoring of the client's usage and managing the peaks of usage. The combination of these 2 goals bring privacy risks. Imagine the police wanting to get information from Eneco or tapping within the database to build a case against the suspect. When it comes to the principle of privacy-friendly design, the best solution for Eneco could be an adjustment in their system by installing a local registry, therefore giving its consumers the ability to check their usage daily and limit their own control as a company by making yearly checks within the database. Having said this, the next principle is storing data locally rather than having a central or national storage. When having a central database, privacy concerns rise to an ultimate peak. Hackers can easily access a wide variety of information stored in central database. The information may include, in some countries, all biometrics of their citizens. This is precisely the type of information that hackers are after, and can cause an extreme amount of damage, such as identity theft. Biometric chips in passports should be handled more carefully, and its information can be checked on the spot rather than having to have all this information stored. The third principle and the most important of this design when it comes to the protecting of data is the importance of keeping data as anonymous as possible. It is not always necessary to store all information. For example, the use of an anonymous OV chip card. The use of an anonymous OV chip card protects users from not having all their information on display, nor is it linked to any person. This means that no personal information can be stored in any database. This is called the principle of maximum anonymity. The penultimate principle deals with personal ownership of data. Everyone should be able to access their data whenever and wherever to be able to change any personal information and/or to restrict third parties to use their personal information. The fifth and last principle is the installment of the goals of registration in hardware and not in software. Choosing between software and hardware is merely a matter of the technical choice. The best device to have is a device that does not store detailed personal information. This ensures the protection of privacy. Users and businesses can both take preventive measures when it comes to protecting their privacy. But how can we achieve maximum protection of our privacy? Firstly, there's the individual self-regulation. The word already gives it away. It is how everyone individually can tackle this problem. Go ahead, check within your phone settings. How many of you have your locations turned on? Or has given applications permission to access their location? Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram? Always make sure you adjust your privacy settings accordingly. Another way for protecting your privacy is by excluding cookies from websites you visited, or erase your search history, or, of course, by hiring professional privacy services and software. But if it sounds so easy, why don't the most of us do it? 2 reasons. 1, the misconception of the thought, it will never happen to me. And 2, it takes self-initiative. Because individual privacy protection can be so time-consuming sometimes, collective self-regulation has been introduced. The collective self-regulation is when, for example, trade unions and user groups negotiate with producers and public administrations about the privacy conditions of using personal data in computer files on the internet. When consumer organizations can participate in privacy design and have a say in the conditions of personal data processing, this can prevent much unnecessary privacy harm. This cooperation could be better than legislation and technical or organizational measures of protection afterwards. Legal protection is necessary and essential when it comes to an effective self-regulation framework. This is to prevent higher powers from prevailing in the end. For example, governments have as main priority security and fight of crime. Thus, They find a way to violate individuals' privacy to be able to ensure that their countries are safe. Another example is popular software such as Google and Facebook, whom ask many personal details to be able to fully complete a profile. Furthermore, employers that enforce personnel information system on their employees. Although essential, legal protection is still very inadequate, especially when it comes to networks. There are 4 reasons why. First of all, privacy regulations and legislations are usually at a low level of development and effectiveness. This is because laws and regulations regarding privacy is different in every country, making it difficult to be able to prove in a criminal proceeding. Secondly, privacy is not viewed as an absolute right of the individual. This is mainly because the right to privacy is often weighed against other rights and interests, such as the security of a country when it comes to governments. Thirdly, legal privacy protection deals almost exclusively with informational privacy. And lastly, legal privacy protection lags behind the development of technology. Technical alternatives seem to be the best structural solution to problems concerning privacy. There are 4 different technical alternatives: local control, concentration of intelligence in network terminals, more offline equipment, privacy-enhancing technologies. Local control is having smaller networks constructed. Thus, one is created, for example, for each department for them to be in total control and protection of their personal data. The concentration of intelligence in network terminals allows more use of unregistered computers. Furthermore, the use of chip cards and smart cards are suitable alternatives when it comes to offline equipment for personal registration. This gives more privacy protection. The 4th alternative and most promising is the privacy-enhancing technology. Privacy-enhancing technologies, also known as PET, is a system of ICT measures protecting informational privacy by eliminating or minimizing personal data. By doing so, it prevents unnecessary or unwanted processing of personal data without the loss of the functionality of the information system. The most important thing to be noticed regarding the 4 means of protection mentioned before is that none of these means can be absent. They need one another to work effectively. To conclude, without protective measures, computer networks will lead to a serious threat to privacy as illustrated throughout this presentation. We hope our presentation has now provided you with much more insight as to how we are constantly being watched and how our privacy is constantly violated with or without our consent. So, how protected are you?